Welcome back to the OP podcast, where you enjoy the audio experience and extract value around topics of business, esports, interviews, and fireside chats. This is episode 2, where we're going to be talking about why grit leads to happiness. We have a special guest today, Christian Porvata Balaker. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, got it.
Awesome, nailed it. So, I'm gonna have his perspective, kind of talking about this, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays are not happy, and most of them end up giving up, and we want to kind of make an impact there on those people. So, what does grit mean? I did a Google search earlier just to kind of give the real definition, but Christian, what do you think grit means to you?
Probably grit is, I think, kind of synonymous with determination, really.
Yep.
I think it's just your ability to, keep your head down and do what you need to do to, achieve your goals.
Exactly.
I think true grit really is just, um, you know, staying on the one path that you set for yourself. And with all the distractions and everything that are around us, just not wavering from it.
That's honestly, that could have replaced the definition on Google.
Wait, really?
Yeah, honestly. Anyways, the definition that Google gave us was that it's courage and resolve, strength of character. Just to simplify what you said. So I want to expand a little bit on grit. Failure is like one of the things that you're going to have to be able to overcome with grit in mind. What are some of the failures that you've gone through and doing what you're doing right now? And expand a little bit on what you're doing as well, just to give clarity to the audience.
What I'm doing right now is I'm the CEO of Vital Point Esports, which is an esports organization. It's been around since May of 2017. It's been an LLC since January of 2018. Currently, we compete in a plethora of games, competitively: Rocket League, Fortnite, League of Legends, Mortal Kombat. So pretty,
A lot.
pretty small to medium-sized chunk of games. We basically compete in tournaments. If LAN events are possible, then we send our teams to LANs. Right now we're currently focusing more on the kind of thickening the edges of our business plan, as opposed to just solely worrying about the competition aspects. Because even though it's important, you still need to kind of make a name for yourself and put your brand out there. So I think kind of that's what we're focusing on. What was the first part?
So the first part was, what are some of the failures in all of this? They got a backdrop. Now they don't know what's behind the scenes. Can you get a little bit of clarity on that from your personal experience?
Like grit with what I'm doing now, or just, not grit, failure with what I'm doing now, or just in general?
Just with what you're doing now.
Really, I feel like, to be brutally honest, I feel like I fail at one thing with Vital Point like almost every day. Like it's just this whole process is just a huge learning experience. There's a pretty big learning curve. Yeah. There's a lot to learn from it. You really just have to be on your toes and always adapt to the next kind of trend, or what's the new hot game that's coming out. Because every game, the esports, I guess, structure is different about how I guess the community of the game, the tournaments that are available, like Overwatch, our Overwatch team, how they go through all of that. It's a little bit different than how our Rocket League team goes through and all these tournaments and tries to get to the top. So really trying to learn and having a good support staff and whatnot. But it's from having teams, like drop you, from having things go wrong with something media related, or
Mm-hmm.
like losing a tournament. I mean, obviously that's probably the biggest one that hurts the most. But yeah, you're always gonna have adversity pretty much every day.
Yeah,
It's pretty rare when I have a pretty like a positive day, like completely. So but yeah, that's what talking about grit.
that
That's what you got to do.
that's awesome. Because I just want to highlight two of the key words and what you've kind of expanded on, which was the first one was adapting, and then the second one was adversity. Because if you kind of like, if the audience kind of understand that there's a certain theme here, it's essentially you're climbing like a mountain, you're trying to get to the peak, and obviously it's not going to be. If it was the opposite, it would be a downward slope, and you wouldn't have adversity. I mean, you would have, I don't know, but yeah, you won't have adversity. You wouldn't have adaptation. So the common theme here kind of like molds this one word, which is grit, and a lot of people just don't want to put in the effort because they
Hmm.
think it's a downward slope, not a upward one. Um,
Yeah.
it's not how it works, but on the brighter side, when you've reached the peak, you know, you won a championship, your business is doing well, your audience is growing, things are looking really good.
Yeah.
That's essentially the peak. And for entrepreneurship and business, a lot of, like, for myself, I'm still wanting to climb to that peak, but when I'm at the peak, I will slide down and do it again. Like, because
Yeah.
that's the joy of, you know, running a business. And not just running a business, but if you are a player, like, it's the same thing. Season ends, you got to climb again and enjoy, in the process of failure and overcoming it, and then success, results. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we live for.
Hmm.
And then just to expand a little bit more on the definition of grit, I want to talk about something else that a lot of people are afraid to do, and we can tie it a little bit into esports entertainment, is being able to give public speeches. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest fear in a lot of people, um, being in front of people and sharing their thoughts and ideas. Because in this world, there isn't a single perspective that is correct. There's always newer perspectives or perspectives
Yeah.
that have been refined.
Hmm.
And I think in today's modern day, a lot of people tend, because with social media is so big, a lot of people tend to follow trends a lot, and they don't they weren't like they're not able to kind of define who they are as a person
Yeah.
and be able to kind of showcase their thoughts.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know how you feel about that, Christian, but I feel like you see it everywhere. You can see it in your
Yeah.
friends, your could be your classmates or your coworkers, and
Hmm.
it stops a lot of people from kind of showcasing the best person they are. Because if
Yeah.
they're able to showcase the best person they are, whatever they're doing, if they're working for your company or they're doing their own thing like streaming or creating a podcast, for example, they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to present themselves and ultimately be happy.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's a big step to really kind of show who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this industry. It's a huge step to really kind of branch out and show who
Mm-hmm.
you are. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I just think there's so much worry about you know, the uncontrollables that
Yep.
people they just manifest themselves with just like what people think about them, or what people
Mm-hmm.
think they look like. And are
Oh
they
my
like
goodness.
shocked?
Yes.
Is it better? Is it worse? Is it like so I think that step is pretty big. But once you're out, and basically you just feel like you opened up completely, then I think you feel a lot better in the end.
Oh yeah.
What did
Yeah.
what did Will Smith say? On the other side of fear, there's happiness, or something like that. or there's
Possibly.
paradise or something like that. He
Yeah.
said, yeah, something. I probably butchered it, but yeah, something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, like I was actually gonna ask you like what's holding these people back. I think one of those things is focusing so much on followers, likes.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of this has to do with what I talked about in the last episode, which is insecurity.
Yeah,
But I kind of gave the audience a little bit of direction on overcoming that, and now we're going into focusing more on being yourself and be able to kind of endure adversity and adapt so that you're able to live life essentially and
yeah.
not behind curtains or have
Hmm.
this fake um, uh, like mask over yourself,
Yeah,
which a lot of people are today, and it's kind of sad to be honest. But I
it
think if
is.
yeah, I think if there's more awareness about it, I think people will drop the mask and be like, wow, I really did not have to focus on these so much. I can just be myself and be
Hmm.
happy and also be successful. It's just a matter of patience too, I
I
think.
think I think a lot of people are. I think most everything of what people do and not do is driven by fear. I think a lot of things are driven
Mm,
by fear. Like for example, like you go to school, you like no one like the education system is just pretty horrendous because
yep,
no one
agree.
wants to do like the work that they're given,
Mm-hmm.
but they do it out of fear because if they don't do it, they get a zero.
Yeah,
They get a number, a label
right.
that will hang over their heads and it'll make them feel horrible for like a week. Um,
Yeah.
so many people in the school system, like there's not enough like no one spikes students' curiosity
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Like it doesn't, people don't do the if people did the work out of like wonder and did like more research into it because a professor actually made them feel like curious about the subject and felt excited about the subject,
Mm-hmm.
I think school would be taken a lot more seriously and a lot like, people would really like cherish, each individual class. But
Yeah.
it's just so hard to come by now. Or I've only had maybe like one or two professors that actually did that for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just kind of the thing that comes to mind where it's just so many things, not just school, but a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
are just driven by fear, and it's pretty sad.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And I actually want to talk about the school system and all that in the future, just not in this
Okay,
podcast because it's not related.
you're good. Yeah, you're good.
Um, but no, like school, I think tying with fear, that was a good example of
Hmm.
where it all stems from. Um,
Yeah.
so I wanna talk about why people turn away from um having like or even thinking about grit, because grit kind of scares them off a little bit because they think that
Hmm.
either it might be difficult,
Hmm.
risky, or there's a certain degree of uncertainty.
Yeah.
um and all these three things, it makes you kind of feel uncomfortable, like you're not playing within the lines anymore, you're playing outside the lines. You
Hmm.
create your own path. A lot of people tend to take the path that everybody or what society creates
Hmm.
is safe, or at least mask it as safe, and tell people that it's okay, this is comforting. But what does that even lead to? It leads to it
Yeah.
leads to the grave, honestly. You
Yeah.
don't, it's a straight path that leads from here to here. You um, go to college, you graduate, you find a job, you marry somebody, you have a house, try to pay it off, have children, and then retirement and death. Like there's
Yeah.
where's the like the journey, the process, and all of that. Most of it is just playing within the lines. Outside the lines is difficult, risky, and there's a degree of uncertainty. And a lot of people that are unhappy and are courageous, have resolve, grit, will tend to play outside the lines.
Yeah.
You know, do you
Hmm.
do you feel like a lot of like do you kind of agree that a lot of people don't Like, do you know people that just play within the lines, but they don't want to take that risk, or it's too
Yes.
uncertain for them? Yeah,
Yes. There's so many people that are
so
just
many.
driven by so many people that are driven by, like, just need to know, like, the no, basically. They need to know the, all the known variables, all the unknown variables freak them out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, like, it can't be like an estimate or about this, it has to be exactly this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think, yeah, there are a lot of people that live within the lines. I tend to do that too when I like new experiences or new places. Like if you move or
Mm-hmm.
something, I tend to stay within the lines and keep it pretty safe. But I think that's just like instinct and kind of human nature for the most part.
Yeah.
But once you get comfortable and kind of get into a routine, you can really start to basically expand and uh, get outside the lines and
Mm-hmm.
do other things.
Yeah. Exactly. So the next thing we're gonna talk about, which is business, and we're gonna try to tie it all together. So we're gonna do a little bit of a backdrop on Vital Point, just a little bit more from the startup perspective. I think you're already
Okay.
giving the audience a good enough backdrop of what you're doing. So, what are some of the difficulties that you're facing as a startup?
Lack of capital.
Okay.
If to be brutally honest,
Yeah.
lack of
Yeah.
capital. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of esports organizations, there are the few that have remained, that kind of were the pioneers of it all,
Yeah.
like TSM, CLG, C9,
Team
those
Liquid.
types,
Yeah.
Team Liquid, yeah, formerly known, Curse,
Yes.
uh, but the they started pretty much from nothing,
Mm-hmm.
but at that time esports was nothing,
Right.
so that's acceptable.
Right.
I think nowadays it's just, you're only gonna make it, if you're a big name, a lot of money. They can
Mm-hmm.
just throw countless amounts of money at it, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then you get the best teams, because of who you are. There's also you know there's like a there's like extra benefit to being on that team because of
Prestige.
who the yeah, there's prestige to it, yeah.
Yeah.
So um yeah, I think starting up, there are there are countless countless small startup esports organizations. They call themselves organizations, but like, um yeah, you make a Twitter page, you make a Facebook group, get a team together, and you're an
Mm-hmm.
organization, like, I guess.
Right.
Um, but it's a lot more. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I think we're obviously not at the level, of any of the tier one organizations, or um, but
Mm-hmm.
I think really kind of just from the get go. This is a business, like, plain and simple. I don't look at it as, like, obviously it's it's fun to do, and I love
Yeah.
the people I work with, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it is a business, and businesses' jobs are to make money unless you're a nonprofit. But
Right.
um, we're not nonprofit. We are definitely for profit.
Yeah.
But I think starting out, instead of focusing on just doing all the little things that make it look like you're doing something big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get the Twitter page, we like, put some recruiting posts up, we get like an average, like half decent team together, and like, there we go, we got the basics, like, it's completely fine. I
Yeah.
think start with the thought in mind of, you know, what's our business model? What can we basically set goals, like, periodically, of, what will get you to these, numbers, or whatnot. I think a lot of people just focus on, like, the easy stuff and the things they can do without any money, when
Yeah.
I think you just start Obviously, if you've never been in the esports organization, I go like or an esports industry, I
Hmm.
completely get like starting, just like dabbling in it. Um, but I think if you understand like the industry, or you understand how big this is, and it's getting bigger and bigger, but
Hmm.
as the years go by, I think if you start and just if you go to someone that has money or you have money, and you show that person or something your plan and how you're going to execute it and whatnot, and like
Hmm.
basically just map out your organization instead of taking it, what do we do today? What do we do today? Like you should know what you're striving for long term.
Yep, I like that.
So
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
really like it because I feel like a lot of I'm gonna speak a little about amateur scene and all these
Hmm.
organizations a little bit. There are organizations and amateur scene that has been like around for a long time.
Hmm.
I don't have to mention them. I think the audience that I'm speaking to already knows this. So like I'm talking about the orgs that are just upcoming or just been around for a year or so. A lot of them, what they do is they just form a team, they compete, they pay for the fees, but a lot of them, the owners, they don't think about how to first create value. Okay, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of organizations, how do you define value for your organization in order to one, make profit, to well,
Yeah.
two, um, what problem are you solving for the consumer that will benefit
Yeah.
them? Like, are they bored? If they're bored, then this is the best chance for you to present the best entertainment, something authentic, a story or a narrative around your players, around the process of creating an esports org, whatever it may be. Create, fill in that void where a lot of the
Hmm.
audience feels bored, because bored people tend to get into entertainment. They consume your content. They end up buying your merchandise. They end up supporting your players. It all ties together, and a lot of people just don't understand that. I don't know why. I think a lot of it, from my perspective, is a lot of them just feel that it's they they they're trying to solve a problem for themselves because they don't want to work with another org. Um, and this is from my experience, because a lot of these people that I talked to, they would tell me that org did something wrong, so I'm gonna start my own. But if you start your own, just realize you're getting into business,
Hmm.
and it's not something you go to school for. It's something that should be in your blood. Um,
Yeah.
you
It-
know,
It's It's not, yeah, it's not easy. This is like a pretty ruthless like thing to pursue.
right?
Um, yeah, you meet a lot of people on the way that you know they're fantastic, really nice people. You also meet a lot of people on the way that are out to screw you, or
Mm-hmm.
they end up doing it. Maybe not intentionally, but they end up doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's business. Like that's how it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And through all the all the thick and thin, it's the best feeling ever. If you overcome it, but you have to have grit, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of these people don't. Well, first off, they don't start by doing. They don't start by executing or even thinking about touching things that are doing things that are related to helping their business grow. Um,
Yeah.
but at the same token, like, it does take time and patience.
A
Timing is
lot.
probably yeah. Timing is probably one of the key things for a business to not fail. However, you can. I mean, there's workarounds where you can avoid having, like, I mean, there's just a lot of nuances that will probably confuse a lot of people, but I'm just gonna keep it simple. Um, there's just a lot of things to consider when you're carving your own path, not for yourself, but for your organization, the people under that organization, to be able to
Hmm.
move in the right direction without jumping off a cliff. Because if you jump
Yeah.
off a cliff, boom, your business is done. Like,
Yep.
people are not gonna get paid. There's no source of income to kind of continue on. It's
Yeah.
it's it's that difficult.
Mhm.
But the number one thing that I would advise everybody is to focus on their customers,
Yeah.
because when your customers lose interest or if they don't see any value with your organization or what you're doing, they will end up um, moving away, or you're gonna lose them, like, because they
Mhm.
are the essentially the blood of the business. Um,
Yeah.
your the people that work for the organization is the framework,
Mhm.
um, and you are pretty much the eyes, the to kind of create clarity for
Mhm.
this entity, um, and I don't know, but there's a lot of different types of business owners. There's no one way to do it. That's the best part. There's no one
No,
way to do
no,
this,
there
um,
isn't. No,
but
no. There's
everything,
yeah.
like, but all the values and the characteristics, you have to have those,
Mhm.
and which is why grit is one of them.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, so tying it all together, um, why, like, I think I already covered some of it, but why might an individual benefit from having grit to succeed in business? If you want to explain to me, Christian.
Hmm. So why would they benefit from grit is what you're asking?
Yeah,
Like having it? I
having it.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean like
acknowledging
it
it.
says like it says in the definition, I mean they're gonna outwork everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna be phased by, anything, any occurrence or mishap that comes their way. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
think, having a solid foundation in an esports organization is pretty key because you'll have some occurrences where, you might lose an entire team in one day,
Oh,
due to something either like you did or something or a staff member did or something. I mean, it's happened to us. So it's like, lose entire team in a day. But if you have that solid base and you have that support staff and you know your direction, then um, it won't phase you. You just basically, you know, I guess turn the other cheek and just continue on.
yeah.
I think grit is just like grit sums up so much of what I think I've been doing, and I think a lot of esports owners and esports organizations have is just they're not wavered by people. Like
Mm-hmm.
they understand their perspective. They understand themselves. They understand themselves. They understand where they are, and so they can like nothing really phases them. And so I
Yeah.
think they're just determined to move on and see their baby succeed.
Yeah, I love it. Um, and then just to throw a curveball here before we go into kind of the closure of this episode, um, I'm gonna answer this too, but I want to know from you, Christian, what defines happiness?
Mm, wow. All right.
Yeah.
What defines happiness? I mean, I think happiness is completely subjective.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely different, but I think happiness is, you know, finding, finding what you were basically made to do
Love it.
and pursuing it, and
Love it.
not caring about, you know, what anyone thinks about it or anything. Like you feel comfortable with what you're doing, you you know are 100% invested into it, and you just you enjoy yourself. There's no you don't feel any pressures, and you can just relax and basically do what you're made to do.
That's amazing. For bro, but that's honestly what I mean. I
Boom,
was gonna say something similar along the lines, but I think you kind of expand. You just nailed it. Like that was that.
boom.
Boom, right?
I
So
have I have nothing written down. This is straight off the dome, so I have nothing written
no,
down.
that's great. That's honestly a lot of people are gonna feel like now people are gonna get excited, but again, the excitement is kind of the honeymoon phase. Once you get into it and you do it day by day by day, year
Yeah,
after year.
the honeymoon phase in esports organization is like, I mean, I've brought up this a million times, but that's like the first thing that everyone does in esports is make a Twitter. Like that's the honeymoon phase. Make the Twitter, the website, all this cool stuff.
Yeah,
That's honeymoon phase. Once it gets down to numbers and business and you realize you don't have money to spend, or you
yeah,
don't have, like, you can't have luxuries unless you get money, and then you have to
right.
start asking people for money and raising money, and then
Hmm.
you basically are playing with their money and not house money, then
Yeah,
that is when you're like, "Oh my god, let's get after it. We gotta, like, we need to make money in any way possible." So,
right. Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, I love it. So I mean, happiness for me is essentially just doing what you're essentially called to do, like born to do. Not by anybody else, but by a lot of soul searching. I think for me, it was a little bit later um, that I decided to actually actually a little story time before we conclude. Back in second grade, I decided that being creative was my thing. That's what made me happy because the school system was
Mhm.
boring. I hate the basic math and all that. But at least I got that education because that's kind of
Yeah,
the
of
technical
course.
stuff I need to know that
Yeah,
later
of
on, or I
course.
was gonna be so illiterate that I'm not gonna communicate well.
People
Um,
still value degrees.
but yeah, so I sold comics like for quarters and creating like this type of comic that entertains other people. That
Mhm.
was that came out of nowhere. Like essentially, I was doing that and I was selling it,
Yeah.
and it all stopped right when I moved from elementary into middle school into high school into first year of college. I was confused as hell because the system tells you to play within the lines and you're kind of not able to do a lot of soul searching, but they kind of they kind of play around with you a little bit, and then they don't let you kind of fail. They don't let you
Yeah.
see the real world um, until later on, which kind of f's a lot of people up
Yeah, of
because
course.
either they do drugs or they go into depression, they get
Mhm.
anxiety. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So so yeah, so happiness is essentially just going for something that is your calling,
Yeah.
truly.
I
And
think I think personally though, sorry to cut you,
oh,
but
you're good.
I think personally, um, what would, like, truly make me happy, just to, give an example, I guess, would just to see, to see people, a mass, like, group of people or something, just
Hmm.
buy in to what I do, whether it's, basically just buy into something that I do, or
Yeah.
watch me do, like, basically pay for something that I've, like, created, or pay to see something, like,
Hmm.
that I facilitate or something like that. That's just like, I think, just from like, personal standpoint, that'd be my definition.
Yeah.
Um,
All right.
yeah,
Overtime.
because,
Hold on. Overtime. So,
all right, got it.
so,
Good.
so like, okay. So everything that we talked about, gotta have grit, which would lead to happiness, and we already defined what happiness is.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like a plan, like for the audience. Like this is the plan. Now the matter of execution, right?
Hmm.
There's so many distractions in today's age.
Of
Uh,
course.
you know, social media,
Hmm.
Netflix, and gaming sometimes too. But it just depends on what you kind of, because gaming is a little bit different. We're not just focusing so much about gaming; it's actually turning into a business, which is flourishing.
Exactly.
It's interesting. Not a lot of people get that. I think
It's a
it's
very
like,
weird dynamic. Yeah.
yeah, it's a very weird dynamic. But with all that being said, I think the audience is going to. What would you say to the audience that about executing on what we just talked about? Like, what would you tell them? Because imagine what's gonna happen is day one, day two, day three, they have this plan this plan that they crafted from what we talked about, but they end up giving up. They don't want to execute on it
Hmm.
because it's too hard. I'm too tired. I'm
Yeah.
hungry, etc.
Hmm.
Like I think we already felt that before. you know. But
Yeah.
we overcome it. We're living it, and we're pushing forward. So what would you tell these
hmm
people?
What I would tell everyone is that set goals for yourself. And when you set goals, and tying it back into esports, because it's what I do,
Hmm.
is so many people, they do something and something good happens, and then their brain instantly projects images and thoughts of them being on the big stage, them being a $30 million organization,
Hmm.
40 whatever.
Right.
um but they don't realize that they're not even close, and then that basically deflates them, and they
Hmm.
end up thinking it's too difficult, when rather you set your goals, you have your goals in mind, and then every single day you work efficiently to reach that goal. I just don't think that if you focus so much on the future and stuff that you don't think you'll be able to attain,
Yeah.
um, and you just focus on the present and just getting there. uh, I think that is fantastic. Like, something I tell my teams, when we recruit teams, we meet when we our first meeting, we all set up 6-month goals and year-long
Yeah.
goals. Hopefully they're there for that long, but 6-month goals and year-long goals, as a team and personally, just so that everyone's on the same page of what to do. And
Yeah.
I tell them, for personal, I mean, just in general, set goals that are, to you, would seem absurd, and they set the bar high, because if you really grind and put all your effort into it, if you get there, you're going to be blown away. If you don't get there, you're still going to be shocked at how far you've come and how much you've improved.
Hmm.
So that's something that we kind of do. But yeah, I think that answers the question.
I love it. So we're gonna go into conclusions here. Closure. Where can we find Christian Parvata Balaker on socials? Any
So, um, yeah. So I don't really have a Twitter for myself. So, but our org Twitter is Vital Point Esports. Point is PT. Our website, vitalpointesports.com. We have a YouTube. My Twitch is twitch.tv/Porvada, with two A's at the end. Um,
go
and yeah,
follow this
that's it.
guy. He's
Yeah.
amazing. You know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doing Q&A on Twitter and YouTube. So if you guys have any questions, I know unfortunately there was no questions, but I'm gonna keep at it until people are gonna ask questions because I love answering them. Add me on Twitter at AlexMTran77. You can also drop a comment on YouTube. Leave those questions below. We'll answer them in the next podcast. Thank you, Christian Pravato Balaker,
Yeah,
for being on this podcast. I think
absolutely.
this topic is important for many of us, and I love your perspective on this.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next episode where we'll talk about strong mentality is the North Star. Have a good one. All right.